It's coming up now on 7:16, and Rob Kirkpatrick is out this morning, but he will be back. Shannon Wilkerson joining us in studio, partnering up with me this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Great to be here. And even when Rob comes back, I'm still coming in.
Okay, so you're just going to roll in.
I'm just going to show up every morning.
I think it should be fun.
I think so.
Yeah.
Either I'm just going to not let Rob do this.
Okay.
Sorry, Rob.
There you go. Sorry, Rob. It's going to happen.
Enjoy some time off.
I love it. You're very fun.
I love coming in here in the morning.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's different.
It is very different from what we do in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's very different from what we do. It doesn't require any research. We just kind of have cut up and talk about news stories and crazy people and their wills.
I like the wills that we talked about this morning.
Yeah,
I'm leaving
fun.
everything to my pet. Mm-hmm. No, not going to do it. All right, so Stafford Barnett joining us in studio this morning. Ann Cavan, Board of Law for Winging It Wednesday. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, my goodness, do we have stuff to talk about today, huh? All right, so let's talk locally. Last night, the council, it was a unanimous decision, deciding, hey, it's time to give officers a raise within the Lafayette Police Department. And, that starting pay up to $40,000. And so I just wanted to get you guys and your thoughts on it. Come on, you want to start first?
So, first of all, I think I always find it anomalous, right? When we look at the actual work that's done and what the compensation is for that work. When you look at what police officers do and what police officers deal with, and when you look at the relative compensation that they get for that, something there is discongruous, right? Something there does not connect. Because the pay, when you think about what it costs to run a family today, it's simply not there. Yeah. And then when you take a look at what the outline pay is for other areas, the ability for Lafayette to maintain a police department to have quality officers who do a tough job. I mean, all you have to do is watch Live PD one night when they're in town and see what they get to deal with.
Yeah, well, they did get to deal with naked guys on PCP.
Yeah.
For the most part.
God,
that's one thing.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Stafford,
sorry.
you really need to behave
Friday
yourself.
nights,
son.
right? I mean, come on, Stafford. You got to change them Friday nights, right?
Well, I agree with you completely. And the disheartening part about it is that it's still so low.
Yeah.
Okay, $40,000. You're right. $40,000 to some people it sounds like a lot of money, but when you take into consideration what the job is, okay, because that's the most important part. What the job is, what the training requirement is, the ongoing training, the risk factor, and the public scrutiny. Okay, because police officers have a different challenge now that they didn't have in the past much.
Even 5 years ago.
Even 5 years ago.
Different.
That's exactly right, because everybody has got a video camera in their back pocket, and everybody is considered a professional videographer.
Yeah, it's long hours, it's tough conditions. The pay isn't great, and when you think about the cost of living in Lafayette relative to anywhere else, study was out a few years ago that said the cost of living in Lafayette is more expensive than New Orleans and Houston.
Whoa.
That was just a few years ago, right?
Wow.
It's been that way for some
and
time.
It has.
Houston is starting to get some parity. I saw an ad
Stafford,
yesterday.
jump in here, yeah.
I saw an ad yesterday for a crap hole apartment in Youngsville for $725 a month, and I just sat there shaking my head, going like,
I know.
So you have to live in a crap apartment, and you probably have to have roommates,
right?
Like,
I mean, how are you making it work?
So I thought it was telling. Like a year ago, the sheriff proposed a tax to help fund sheriff pay, equipment, and to give pay raises to the Lafayette Police Department. And that was shot down by the community. And that was something
well,
that
there
was
were some questions, too, about the legality of the sheriffs collecting that tax and being able to give it to the Lafayette PD officers.
There was a question about the contractual agreement between how the sheriff and the Lafayette police could do that. It was basically going on the word of the sheriff, right? And he's been, in my opinion, a phenomenal sheriff. That didn't get passed. We had, some of the ultra-conservative people in the community really come out and oppose it. And then when the police went for their raise, I thought it was very telling that the sheriff showed up to the city council and said, I'm here to support it. These guys deserve it. So now we've got a situation where we're paying starting salaries higher. I don't know how much we boosted the later on salaries in their career.
It's a little bit. I don't know the breakdown. We talked briefly about it yesterday with the chief.
So, and we've potentially put the general fund in jeopardy in the next couple of years. So,
I mean, those are real questions that we have to address.
They are, and the only people that we touched on were police. We didn't touch on firefighters. We didn't touch on LCG employees who are also civil servants. Although I'd argue for the LCG employees, they're not as risky of a job. I think the firefighters deserve it as well. The fact that we rely on these people to protect us and protect our property, and we don't reward them. The same thing. It's the same thing with teachers. We don't reward them enough. To me, is a problem.
Okay, so let me follow this up with another question, and you guys each will get about a minute or so, to kind of tackle this. Okay, so do you think, though, if a tax were proposed, like for the sheriff's office, for example, if a tax were proposed, maybe a part of a few mills increase in a property tax and or a sales tax, and it was much more specific, in other words, the way that the language was, do you think that's something that people would vote for?
So anecdotally, what I will give you, because I'm pretty much we generate enough tax revenue guy, so we don't need a heck of a lot more. My biggest issue when I go to the ballot box is the fact that it is not necessarily dedicated at all times in specific manners as to this is where it's going to go and it can't be messed with. Takes us back to the lottery, right? Remember, the lottery is going to fix all these great things in Louisiana.
Video poker.
Right, video poker. And unfortunately, politicians are given money and they don't necessarily do what they say they're going to do with it. If we absolutely dedicate and say, this is specifically for police and fire, first responders, look, you got me. And I think that the people who typically have that
I don't want to do it.
That adherence to voting for a tax, if they know specifically what it's going for and it's outlined in the proper way, at that point, you're cutting off your own nose in spite of your face if you go vote against it, because the police, fire, first responders, they're there for us.
Right. Okay.
I mean,
Stafford?
I agree, but we've found that the citizens still vote against it. I mean, the unincorporated part of the parish was given an opportunity to help fund fire protection services in the area, and it lost 52 to 48 or 53-47, and their mortgages went up. It was a small millage. That being said, I've heard a lot of conservatives and Democrats alike come out and say that if there was a dedicated millage for roads and drainage, they would support it. Here's what was really interesting about the sheriff's tax and why the only poll that matters is the poll on voting day. The sheriff polled people, and his tax polled very high. It should have been, if you look at that data, a home run, right? It was a well-done poll. It was a large sampling size. It was done on people's cell phones with live operators, whole 9 yards, the most expensive form of polling there is. It still failed. People like to say that they back the blue, but they just don't want to do it with their wallets, right? So until Lafayette gets serious about funding its priorities, which it hasn't done for a long time, and we've had 12 years now since Joey Durrell tried to put a roads and drainage deal together, and it didn't go through, and now our roads and drainage are extremely worse than they were before. So Lafayette has and the problem is, and I've suggested this many times, our sales taxes are way too high, our property taxes are way too low. To have the 10.5 cents in Youngsville blows me away. 9.5 cents in Lafayette blows me away. I'd much rather pay more on my property taxes and less on my sales taxes and get some quality services.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you,
Shannon.
Kavan, I wish you were right. Okay, that people would. Okay, I wish you were right. I wish that I could believe that people would vote to approve a tax. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with you. I don't think that people would vote for any tax if there were, because I think that there's a mistrust that even when you say it's dedicated, I know myself, I don't believe that. Okay, once they get the money, they can make the rules different, and then they can tap into that money and use it for other things. I don't care what the paper says, if this is or what the commitment is. I don't necessarily believe that the money is always going to be used for what they promise it's going to. Hold on, Stafford. I'm agreeing with you, so just lighten up. Okay. Plus, I think that people have a mistrust of government when it comes to the mismanagement of the money that they
Agreed.
already get from us.
Agreed.
Okay, so I think that there's a lot of people that would say, you know what? I think that we need to pay the police officers more. I think that we need to pay the fire department more. I think we need to put more money into drainage and sewerage. But they've already got enough, and they're mismanaging it. So you need to revisit your own budget and be more responsible with the money that you already get from them. So I wish you were right, but I think you're right.
I think that those comments are said by people who don't bother to look at budgets and don't bother to get involved with their council people.
Yeah, that's everybody.
I don't think it is
well,
everybody,
it's the majority of people. You get anybody on the street, they're not going to have an understanding of what the budget says or does.
Yeah,
and even if you gave them the budget, absolutely.
For 12
even if
years, every Thursday, we talked about it.
Yeah.
And people still don't understand.
Right.
No,
Right.
yeah, you know, it's far-fetched,
years.
you know,
Yeah.
it's too difficult for people to really, and I'm not saying that people are stupid, okay,
but they got kids
it's complicated.
and soccer,
yeah.
and, you know.
Right.
You know, a budget like that is so complicated that it's hard for people to have a grasp on it.
Well, it's also very easy for people with power intentions to misconstrue stuff about that.
Absolutely.
And so when we have dedicated funds like the public health fund that was mosquito spray that went to drainage and all this kind of stuff, that had to go back out for vote.
Yeah.
To the public. We can't. There's a misconception about what the council can do with the budget. They can't just go take money from stuff and give it to others.
Yeah. Thus the lack of trust.
Mm-hmm. All right, we continue this discussion coming up. In studio this morning, Shannon Wilkerson is here. He's in the role of Rob Kirkpatrick. Stafford Barnett is here. He's in the role of Stafford Barnett. Kavan is here, and he's just Kavan. I'm just Bernie. So, all right, we'll be back. Winging It Wednesday. Some more on the way. All right, double-checking what's happening in traffic at this hour. Still got a report here this morning of Arsenal Drive at Endicott and Karen Crow. That's Arsenal Drive at Endicott in Karen Crow. 90 eastbound near North Morgan. It's 90 eastbound near North Morgan, and a stalled vehicle, East Gloria Switch Road at the Northeast Frontage Road. Make sure you're buckling up out there. Traffic brought to you by Broussard Poche, your firm for a lifetime. All right, it's coming up now in 7:31. We continue Winging It Wednesday today, and we've got Kavan Bordelaw and Stafford Barnett in studio. The role of Rob Kirkpatrick being played by Shannon Wilkerson this morning. So, all right, gentlemen, so let's get back into discussions and politics and, you know, issues, taxes, et cetera. So the president is going to be in Monroe today. He's going to be stumping for Eddie Rispone. Ralph Abraham is going to be there, who lost out to Rispone in the first go-round in the general election. So just wanted to get some thoughts on that. Your thoughts, Stafford?
I mean, considering what happened last night in Kentucky, a state that Trump won by 30 points, and it just went blue at the governor's mansion, maybe they ought to reconsider bringing him in. That being said, I've said from day one, I don't think that there's if any Republicans thought they could beat Bell Edwards, we'd have Jeff Landry or John Kennedy running against him. We don't have that. We've got Eddie Rispone and we had Ralph Abraham. I do believe it is a race. I think the polling shows it is a race. But I think we're in a very different time than we were 2 years ago, or 3 years ago at that. So, I mean, it should be interesting. I think it's maybe not the best move, but I could be wrong. And look, Eddie Rispone could win. I don't see them moving the undecideds to the right. And I don't see Trump being able to move the undecideds to the right.
Because do you think just most people have already made up their minds as well?
Well, no, that's not what the polling shows. The polling shows it's 48-46 JBE to 46 Rispone. And so you got to consider what percentage of the undecideds you have to move and what it is that motivates them. And I don't think that those are – I could be wrong, but I don't think that delta is motivated by Trump.
Okay. All right, Kavan, want to weigh in on the issue?
So I'm a firm believer, especially after what we saw a few years ago, that if you put all your faith in polling, you're probably going down the wrong road today. Because specifically, I mean, you can even look at Kentucky. You know, we brought that up. The Republican was slated to lose that by as many as 15 to 20 points in some polls, and we're now in a no declared winner yet. Specifically, the Republican is trailing, but it's only by about 5,000 votes.
And he said he's going to wait it out.
And he said he's going to wait it out. So, and look, he may not win. However, when you look at the polling there, the polling showed that he was going to get obliterated.
Mm-hmm.
Trump comes in, next thing you know, all of a sudden it's a race. I think what you're going to see in Louisiana is you see a governor, and I go back to that old axiom that I talk about all the time, which is I believe none of what they say, I believe only what they do, right? You now see a governor who is not running on his record. He is pulling out people to start now comparing Risponi to David Duke. That is not the indication of a governor, an incumbent, who really thinks he's going to win. He's pulling out every stop to ensure that he's trying to get over that 50% mark. And, typically where Trump has gone, you have seen a Trump bump. Now, how big that is, I'm not sure. And I'm not an analytics guy. But if I'm an incumbent who at no point has gotten over 48% in any of the polling and starts running in that way, maybe there's some analytics on the back end that I don't know. And the other big thing is Trump is going to North Louisiana, which is Abraham territory, right? Which is where Risponi needs the support. That's what really Risponi needs, because if he loses Monroe, he is done. So he's going to that area. We'll see what happens. To Stafford's point, it is a race. There's no doubt it's a race. I just don't know that this has been in the bag for John Bel Edwards since day one.
Yeah, I think that I'm not sure how much Trump will motivate the undecided voters, but what I think is going to be more effective with Trump arriving here and campaigning for Risponi is that he will motivate the voters to come out, the Republican voters. I think that is where his strength lies in this campaign, not necessarily swaying the undecided one way or another. I don't know. I don't know that there are a lot of undecided voters out there that are going to say, oh, now I've made up my mind because the president has come down and told me what to do. But I do think that him campaigning will get more Republicans to show up and vote. And I think that's where his strength lies.
Yeah, okay. Yes. I'm sorry, Stafford. Go ahead.
They've got to get the markets where there's no runoff to have a good turnout.
Yeah. Right.
In order for anybody to win.
What do you guys think about polling in general? We've seen so many changes because it used to be you call a landline, most people would participate. Then when it comes to, all kinds of ratings and polling across the country, the shift has gone to, your cell phone, right? But you still have a lot of people who are not participating, whether it's at home or on their cell phones, because they just don't answer because they don't want to deal with any of the baloney calls, basically.
Yeah. I don't answer.
And those who do answer, are they being truthful?
No.
I'm curious. What do you
I'm the
guys
type
think?
of guy that answers.
Right. Okay.
Right. And
so
I get
you
excited.
Answer, right. And you get excited and you're like, I answer, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to answer this.
Yeah.
And you answer honestly for what you feel.
Right.
So do you think there's a portion of people, though, that do answer and don't answer honestly?
I think the people that are not going to answer honestly likely don't answer at all.
Okay.
Okay. That's just my opinion. I think that there's a certain paranoia now that exists with the information that is out there.
Yeah, that's what I wondered about.
I don't want to
crazy about it.
Yeah, I think that there are people that let's just say that they are Trump supporters. Okay. And they're going to vote for Risponi because Trump's coming down. And that's one of the questions that are asked. I think that people might be inclined to not tell the truth simply because
they don't want to be stigmatized.
They don't want the stigma. They don't want that information out there because, man, you say the wrong thing or if you say the truth in some people's eyes, that could just be a wrong thing, and then you're under attack. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that would happen, but I think that people are paranoid about that.
There's a perception that maybe, Stafford, would you agree, disagree?
I'd completely disagree.
Okay.
I think that if people are paranoid about that they're just paranoid about things in general.
Yeah.
Like polling is extremely expensive.
Oh, gosh, yeah. That's ridiculous.
And the more you call people's cell phone, the more you use live operators. And then the idea that you would somehow pay somebody more money to collect that data and then categorize it and then be prepared to sell it is not feasible. You should be more worried about what Facebook is doing with Cambridge Analytica and Google with and Alexa. Those are actual issues that we've seen done with Brexit and with the Trump campaign.
Thus the paranoia.
Yeah, but it's not from polling though.
Yeah, but people put all this to
in the same. Do they put it in the same
I
basket?
think so. I really do. I think that and listen, it's just my opinion. But from the people that I know and the information that I see and the feedback that we get in the afternoons, I think people are becoming very aware of technology and how technology can be used against them, like Alexa, okay, and these devices in our homes. And I think that we're getting more and more data that says that this technology can, in fact, spy on us, and we have no idea. So, originally, let me come back to the first thing I said. I think that if people are not going to be truthful and they don't want to participate, they likely just won't answer.
So I'm going to land kind of in the middle because I don't think it's paranoia that stops people from maybe giving a truthful answer.
Okay.
I think it's just specifically, I think people who vote for Trump, who are going to walk behind that curtain and pull that lever, who are going to vote conservative, are so sick and tired of being called things and hearing things that they just say, you know what, I'm going to tell them what they want to hear in the polling, and then I'm going to go do something behind the scenes when I get into the booth. I wondered if that was
part of it,
right?
too.
So, and look, I have...
I can see that.
To that point, I have no empirical evidence of this. It's not like I can say I know this for a fact.
It's how you feel about, like...
It's anecdotal evidence. It's people that I talk to.
Right.
It's places where I hear it. And what's really interesting where this brings us is when we start talking about information, right? We know that Alexa is listening in your home every second of every day because it has to in order to hear the term, hey, Alexa, will you? Right. So it's always listening. We know they're collecting data. And then what Stafford brings up about what Facebook and what Google is doing, when you go back and look at the testimony of Dr. Robert Epstein out of Harvard in front of the Senate, his estimate is that Google swayed more 2 to 10 million votes to Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election.
Wow.
Now, that is a Harvard professor, and it's on YouTube if you want to go Google Dr. Robert Epstein. That's his analytics, right? So when you look at what the big tech companies are doing, to Stafford's point, that's really what we should be worried about. But we should be worried about it on every front, not just, they did it for Trump, they did it for Clinton. Oh, absolutely on every platform, because ultimately we have gotten to a point where we've got people in high tech jobs who realize that we as a species are predictable. Right? Maybe not on an individual level as much, but as a whole, we are predictable, and they are utilizing every data point they can find.
Yes, because it's the age-old thing
to try and influence the largest mass of people. Right? And I'm not saying it's a huge conspiracy. It's just a lot of times it's just businesses, products,
it's just
services.
It's just marketing.
It's marketing. That's exactly what it is.
Just watch the Cambridge Analytica document on Netflix, and you'll realize how effective these guys were at being able to sway elections.
Okay, guys, it's coming up now in 7:41. We continue our discussion. Stafford Barnett, Kevon Bordelon, and Shannon Wilkerson in studio with us. More coming up. All right, giving an update to traffic this morning. There is a fender bender Vero at the roundabout. Again, a fender bender Vero at the roundabout. And we've been talking about the traffic alert. Bonaire Road from Winsong to Fortune is closed for construction now. But the detour routes, apparently, according to one of our listeners, are not posted yet. So they don't stop you. So you end up having to turn around. So if you go in Bonan from Winsong to Fortune, just know it is closed. Please take an alternate route that you are aware of, please. All right. We have three gentlemen joining us in the studio this morning. Shannon Wilkerson joining us, playing the role of Rob Kirkpatrick. And we've got Stafford Barnett and Kevon Bordelon for Winging It Wednesday. All right, so let's talk about some of the elections from yesterday and talk about what could be the aspects. Stafford, I want to begin with you and ask you, okay, so is this the blue wave that was predicted 4 years ago or whatever, or what do you think?
No, I just think it's the pendulum swinging. I mean, it continues to do that. I think that, we had the blue wave. It was in 17 or 16, so around there, I think 17. And the pendulum's going to continue to swing. It's just the nature of politics in the United States, and we're going to continue to see that kind of stuff. I mean, with the investigations going on and with the evidence coming out more and more every day that there was some questionable stuff done by the president, it's not anything that should be new to anybody at this point. But now I've got Sondland amending his testimony to say that there was, in fact, a quid pro quo and implicating everybody else in Washington who said that hasn't happened. You're seeing people running away from committing perjury, which I think is a good thing. They have an opportunity to tell the truth. So I think it's just a matter of time before the pendulum swings the other direction. You know, whenever it does swing to the left or the right, that party tries to spend as much time as possible keeping the pendulum on that side.
Sure.
I think at this point you're seeing it swing back the other direction a little bit faster.
All right. Come on.
So I'm actually going to agree with Stafford on the fact that that number one, you're going to see the pendulum swing, right? I mean, Trump is not going to go to every city and win every state that he runs to. I mean, it's not going to happen. So we are going to see things swing back and forth, and it's going to happen. Where I think we find the really interesting point on this is number one. So, you know, Mississippi was one he will claim as a victory. Kentucky is one where more than likely he's going to say, hey, I did everything I could to help a candidate that was down significantly in the polls. But what I think is where we're going to get to the real meat of this is when we start talking about investigations and evidence coming out, right? So we hear yesterday that Sondland came out and said, oh, there was a quid pro quo. When if you actually read the transcript, he says, I presumed there was a quid pro quo, but I did not know if there was or not. When he was asked why he presumed, he said, I don't know. I just thought there was. So interesting when you read the transcript, what actually happens, and the news won't tell you, right? You get a headline that says, I did, right, or there was, and then the word presumed. And we all know how to spell the word assume, right? We know what it makes when we assume things. And if you read the transcript of the actual call, which I've done multiple times, it's easy to find, nowhere does it say that. And then when you hear from Volker at one point, who says there was no quid pro quo, and then when you hear the text from Sondland, who tells someone the president implicitly said no quid pro quo, so, you know, where's the evidence?
Okay,
is
Stafford,
what I'm
jump in,
interested
because
in
I know
here.
he's chomping at the bit. You obviously disagree.
The president has said a lot of lies. He said he didn't pay Stormy Daniels and didn't know about Stormy Daniels. He said a lot of lies, and it's lazy, and it's poor arguments to blame everything on the media. It's something that shouldn't be done. And let me say this: he said point blank, he said we told the Ukrainian government that they needed to open investigations into the company that Biden's son was working for, and this bogus conspiracy theory that was being pushed by Manafort, right? Who's in jail now, that the Ukrainians were involved in the DNC election meddling and not the Russians. So what we have is we've got a lot of gaslighting happening by the president right now.
Is there gaslighting on both sides?
Oh, there's absolutely gaslighting on both sides, because what we have now is we have documentation, number one, from Burisma's lawyers, that they are pushing the State Department to suppress a corruption investigation through John Kerry, which also, by the way, a very close associate of John Kerry. This can all be found. You can read all of the emails at the Hill. You've got documentation from the Ukraine, right? You've got documentation from even liberal sides of the aisle. Politico in 2017 documented that the Ukraine had to call Trump and tell him, gee, we're sorry we were working with the Democratic Party. The list of names is immense. And when you even start looking down to Yovanovitch, who was the ambassador at the time that they all claim was the start of all of this, Yovanovitch is on record as campaigning against a sitting foreign leader while she's in office as an ambassador, which, oh, by the way, is a violation of her task at hand. And you know what? If Trump did decide to fire her, she works at the behest of the president. He can fire anybody he wants at any given time.
But he cannot. But let's be clear. We don't use foreign government intelligence services to take down political rivals.
So I agree. Tell that to Five Eyes. Tell that to Mifsud. You know who Joseph Mifsud is, I take.
I have no idea, but
So you just follow the dots here. Start looking up Joseph Mifsud. Look up Stefan Halper. Look up all these guys. Mifsud is the guy who started Russian collusion, right? He's the one who approached Papadopoulos. And I love the way you say conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy. It's just not a theory at this point, right? Because Mifsud is on the record. Mifsud has been paid by the U.S. government on multiple occasions, and he is the foundation for Trump's campaign colluded.
Okay. So how does this then translate to local elections? Because I have people send me stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But if I can't prove it, you can tell me whatever you want. You can send me an email. I look for documents. I'm still in search for one document about something. I haven't found it yet. I've done public record requests, so we can think and say stuff. But do you guys think stuff like this goes on? Not on the state level, but on a local level.
What do you mean?
Well, that people try to manipulate or move or, it's like when you put up these sites that say this candidate did such and such.
Yes.
Right?
You're referring to the LA First PAC site.
Yes, right? But I want to see what is the proof on it. I don't care, and I don't care what candidate it's for, right? Because I don't like sites that go and say, "Oh, you did this." Well, okay, prove it to me.
There's a voice recording of him on that site saying he does,
and I haven't even read that. Okay. So what I'm talking about,
I'll tell you about it. There's a voice recording of Josh Guillory saying that he doesn't believe that life begins at inception, and that the Supreme Court got it right, and that if he was elected to Clay Higgins' seat, he wouldn't propose a law trying to overrule the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And then he's turned around and ran on a different platform. Mm-hmm. While I personally don't care about that, what I care about is I think the race for runoff should have been Cawley versus Simone. I think Lafayette would have been in a lot better shape to have two people with experience with an opportunity to run the city. And now we have one guy will say and do anything to get elected, who's got some popularity because he has an R next to his name.
The same has been said. People have criticized Carly for doing the same thing. Now she's on spot saying she's a conservative.
Yeah.
The radio spots say she is a conservative.
Yeah.
But is that something she would have said 6 months ago?
So is the defining moment for being a conservative having an R next to your name?
I don't know.
And the reason I'll bring that up is if you look at the record of Governor Edwards, he signed a heartbeat bill. That's the most conservative thing there is out there.
Right.
But he's got a D next to his name.
But he's not fiscally conservative.
Well, if Bobby Jindal's a fiscal conservative, then we're all doomed by fiscal conservatism.
But you have to remember, John Bell Edwards was in the legislature.
And voted
Bobby Jindal was governor.
And voted for every single budget.
For every single budget.
Which is constricted.
Stand ground, so
I agree.
Which the governor is constricted on what he can cut and move around, right? To be fair to all governors. They do not have general access to go into the budget and just clip anything they want.
That's incorrect. They have line item veto power.
Oh, that's right.
The governor
governors do have line item veto.
Okay, so look, we learn something new every day. and I appreciate that because that's, I'll be the first to admit when something is new, right? Yeah. So when did, and I'm just curious, when did we put that in?
During Mike.
It was during Foster's.
Mike Foster's
administration.
Okay. So look, it's great that we have that. And once again, I agree with you that I would have loved to have seen a Simone Carly runoff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I really would have liked to have seen that. But the reality is, we are where we are.
Yeah. I mean, this is what people chose, obviously.
And where I will take this is, and unfortunately, this goes to pretty much any politician. There are very few that will tell you, this is my stance and I'm sticking to it whether you like it or not. It is the nature, I think, of a lot of politicians.
Yeah, because
to say
you're
one
trying
thing,
to get a popularity contest going where you get all the votes. I mean,
they're trying to say one thing in front of one group and one thing in front of another, and sooner or later, specifically just by nature of the fact that, we talked about earlier, everybody's got a phone, you're probably going to say something that is going to be construed as contradicting yourself, or is just going to flat out contradict yourself.
Right.
Those things happen. To your point, Bernie, do I think that people try to manipulate things on the back end?
Always?
We're human.
No, yeah.
We're
well,
human,
that's true.
right? We are all guilty, and our politicians are not excluded from this. We are all guilty.
And neither are media people.
No.
Regardless of what they tell you.
Yeah.
Everybody has a natural bias. You're a human being.
The very first lesson that you learn in any good journalism course is that you will never write a completely unbiased article. Myself, anybody out there, right? You're always going to have a bias to
it's
any
based
article.
on your life experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, you do your best to try to take that out of it because your personal truth is your personal truth.
Yeah.
And it shades everything you write and say and do.
So
okay, fine. Yeah, let's.
I got a question for you.
Let's get some final comments. Yes, only for time. Yes.
Y'all are doing which I think is great, a debate between Josh and Carly.
Correct.
Is Robideau in on that one?
No.
Okay.
No.
How is it possible?
This is a KPEL debate that I had asked for and worked on and worked 2 weeks to get, trying to make concessions to both sides so they would both feel comfortable doing
Awesome.
this.
So I hope I'm not alone in this. In what world does it make sense for Joel Robideau, who's supporting the Josh campaign, to moderate a debate between Josh and Carly?
I don't think it does.
And by the way,
but
he's a terrible mayor.
But look,
No bias there.
Right. I don't. I'm not a journalist.
I know.
I'm biased.
No, we're good.
right. So some are going to argue because he is sitting in the position now,
Yeah.
it gives him a different perspective. I personally don't think that it's a good idea, but I don't know what the two candidates ultimately are going to say.
Look, I'm on board with having as neutral of a moderator as possible.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, to the earlier point, you're never going to find somebody who's going to be completely neutral. However, if you've got someone who has come out and said, well, I support this guy, you've got a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have a visible conflict of interest.
Yeah, exactly.
That is when you absolutely have to say, you know what, we need to take the high road here. And in order to try and give the voting populace, which is where and by the government gets its power, the most clean look at who they're voting for, that's, to me, the package you have to go.
Okay, guys, and we got to start wrapping it up. About 10 seconds. Go ahead.
It's early voting time.
Yes.
Get out and vote.
Correct.
I think everybody knows where I'm voting, but I think it's very important that you get out and do it. Have a great week.
Okay, y'all, thank you for your time today. Enjoyed it very much. Coming up now on 7:58, it's going to be cloudy, a few peaks of sunshine throughout the day. High temperature expected at 78 degrees. Right now, 55 here at KPEL.